Hello, all you blood-licking, gen-rushing, palate-stunning, and hex-crunching maniacs. Welcome to a guide on the Trapper, or the Thirst Trap. The Trapper, or Evan McMillan, is a large hunk of meat who, unlike you, actually manages to hook up. Evan is a generally standard man who is a big fan of bear traps and trap music. He used to work for his dad at a mining company and even made friends with his coworkers. The only downside was that his dad was a total dick and made Evan and his friends work in miserable conditions with questionable moral and legal implications. But hey, eventually Evan's dad went too crazy in old age and could no longer run the company, allowing for Evan to take over. However, the damage was already done, and a bitter Evan, who was still being yelled at by his aging father, couldn't take it anymore and did a little troll. A light prank, if you will. And he blew up the mine while his friends were in it and killed them. As any good friend would do. He then beat his dad and left him a whimpering mess before disappearing into the night fog for the entity to take him. Now, as his name would imply, Trapper's power is bear traps. You start with 2 bear traps in your inventory and a bunch of bear traps lying around the map. You can go around placing traps down. Remember that you always have the outline of where the trap will go when placed. When you place a trap, you gain a 7.5% haste effect for 5 seconds. After you place all the traps in your inventory, you can always go over to another trap and pick it up, or if you like where it's placed, just go ahead and open it where it's at. However, survivors can always be little shits and disarm your traps. So, you might have to move the traps after a survivor finds them. Or if they are as stupid as they tend to be, you can leave it there and watch as they frantically waste time closing the same trap over and over and over and over and over again. So now that we know the Trapper and his ability, how do you play him? Simply put, lay traps everywhere. Like this player's corpse. See, Trapper works best as a constraint killer. He can shut down loops while in them and make certain tiles of the map a complete death trap for survivors. He can also cause an amazing domino effect of survivors walking into the dumbest of trap spots and giving you a 4K after nearly losing an entire match. Anyhow, what I find best works on Trapper is 2 sets of strategy: loop blocking and surprise traps. Loop blocking is pretty basic. You set up traps in loop spots, basically just on areas where people would pull down pallets, vault windows, or fall through a hole. This lets you get a good clean trap that can allow you to easily down a survivor. Now, some people like to play this style of Trapper by throwing every trap and the deity into one loop area, which honestly is not the brightest idea, as survivors will likely just avoid that loop section. Yet, sometimes this isn't the case, as you don't necessarily have to put it into a single loop section. Now, the surprise strategy is a bit more complicated. See, most people would agree that putting a random trap down in the middle of nowhere that seems like nobody would walk over it is bad. Well, wrong. Putting down traps in spots that survivors could end up just walking over or accidentally run into is actually a really effective use of your traps. See, when survivors know that you are playing Trapper, their first instinct is to be careful of loops and pallets because they might have traps on them. But if you just put a trap down out in the open, survivors will just walk into them because they don't expect it. Like, how are you going to expect a trap to be placed next to a rock, next to a random tree with no grass, pallet, or generator nearby? You don't! And that's the beauty of it. An unexpected trap always gets survivors more often than a trap at a loop will. However, Trapper has a problem. You see, his traps have a limit to where they can be put. You can't just place traps right next to another trap in a straight line. There will always be some space, and that space will always be enough for a survivor to run through. See, these unwashed, greased, and cracked up on G Fuel survivors will always find a way to try and avoid your traps if possible. If you give them an apple-sized gap between the trap and a wall, they will play it like prop hunt and slip right through that shit. But even with this limit, there is a little stupid strategy that I found to be viable, but it's only endgame. See, you can use these on survivors, who should just leave the game, very easily. Simply the gate meet strategy. Simply to set this up, put down 2 bear traps at the entrance of the exit gate that is open. Then just stand in between the traps and watch as survivors try to either disarm your traps or somehow, more likely, walk into it for some reason. I've gotten way too many kills with this strategy that I just shouldn't have, just blatantly should not have. Now, listen to the blissful sound of survivors running into traps. Enjoy. I just wanted to give a really big thank you to Boosted Composer who created that lovely little sample of music there. Well, I say sample, yet I used almost the entire 2.5 minute clip. But seriously, man, thank you so much for allowing me to use this. I was really happy to use this, and I don't know if you can tell, but I really loved it, and I really loved making a montage to it. Thank you so much. Now, the add-ons for the Trapper's Traps are fairly versatile, but we could break them down to a small handful of categories. Discount springs, British dental work, toys, potato sacks, and compost. Discount springs consists of the 4 coil spring kit and secondary coil, which increase the speed it takes to disarm a trap by 33% and 50% respectively, the oily coil, which reveals the aura of the last survivor to disarm the trap for 5 seconds, and the bloody coil, which injures survivors who disarm a trap. British dental work consists of the padded jaws, which don't do damage, but still trap survivors and increase your blood points for trapping by 100%. Lengthened jaws, that give survivors trapped deep wound upon escape. Serrated jaws, that give survivors injured by the trap hemorrhage until healed. And rusted jaws, inflicting mangled onto damaged survivors until they are healed. For toys, there is bear oil that makes setting traps silent, trapper gloves making setting speed 30% faster, wax brick that increases the time to rescue and escape a trap by 33%, fastening tools, making rescue and escape times 25% longer and trap setting 50% faster, the tar bottle, which darkens the appearance of the traps, the honing stone, making traps able to down injured survivors that step into them, the tension springs, which lets traps reset after 2 seconds from a survivor stepping into them, and the iridescent stone that resets a random trap to open every 30 seconds. With potato sacks, there is the trapper bag, which gives the trapper an additional trap to start the trial with, and allows him to carry an extra trap overall, and the trapper sack, which gives trapper all of his bear traps at the start, but removes his ability to pick them back up. Finally, the compost category. This consists of the makeshift wrap, which prevents trapper from stepping in his own traps and getting stunned, but closes traps he steps in, and coffee grounds, which gives trapper an additional 5% haste to his haste from setting a trap. Most of these add-ons are viable in their own right. Generally, they mess with survivors when they step onto you more than obvious bear traps. However, some can completely scare survivors when they don't expect them, and others can make survivors hate living when they try to disable your traps. For those of you who are newer to the game and are for some reason using this video as a general guide to actually get into the game and understand the mechanics of some of the killers, every killer has a teachable set of perks. Those perks for Trapper are Agitation, Brutal Strength, and Unnerving Presence. Agitation lets you move faster when you carry a survivor by 6 to 18%, while also giving you a 12-meter increase to your terror radius. Brutal Strength lets you beat down pallets, doors, and generators at 10 to 20% increased speed, and Unnerving Presence increases the odds of a survivor getting a skill check and decreases the success zone by 40 to 60%. Agitation and Brutal Strength go well on Trapper. See, Trapper eats pallets. Lots of pallets. So much that he knows exactly what type of wood these pallets are made of. Brutal Strength just makes it so much easier to catch survivors who want to constantly drop those pesky pallets onto your head. And when you do finally catch them, Agitation makes it much more pleasant to hook that annoying gnat that buzzed around your TNL wall for 3 generators. However, in my opinion, Unnerving Presence isn't all that great on Trapper. It's a great perk for some characters, but with Trapper's average terror radius, it's not the best. Even when adding perks like Distressing, which increases your terror radius by about 20%, it doesn't exactly help you all that much. It can make survivors more likely to mess up generators, but it goes well with other characters' perks much better. Now, Trapper has a lot of builds you can choose from the impossible totem build to the never healthy build. With how simple and versatile Trapper is, you can run basically any perk on him and have it be viable and enjoyable as long as you play your traps well. Personally, I suggest running a generator perk, a detection perk, and a perk to help lessen the distance between you and a survivor. Generally, your perks as Trapper aren't all that important because at the end of the day, the jaws of your traps are what does them in.
Trapper is generally a great beginner killer to play with as he has a low skill ceiling but can have great variety in how he's played. While he may not consistently get you 4Ks, that's not the objective of the game. The point of the game is to get any kills you can, and remember, you only lose if you don't have fun. Anyways, I would like to give a shout out to my good friend Turnip for the thumbnail of this video. I love how it turned out. I'm going to show it on screen real quick again because I adore how this came out. Thank you so much for that. Hunter Z for helping to edit down footage, and a few other friends who helped suggest things for this video, aspects of the game, and general script editing. And, of course, I'd like to thank all of you for watching this. Remember, have fun, and play how you want to as long as it's not cheating, hacking, or exploiting, and praise be the Neoti.